Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to explore a truly mind-bending connection. We're looking at how the absolute weirdest, most counterintuitive discoveries of modern quantum physics were actually mapped out by ancient philosophers. Literally guys in togas, just sitting around and thinking roughly 2,500 years ago. It sounds totally impossible, right? But stick with me, because as we go through this, you'll see just how unbelievably far ahead of their time they really were.
So, did ancient Greek philosophers actually predict quantum mechanics? I know, it sounds like a totally crazy question. We normally think of modern physics as something born in massive particle accelerators with billions of dollars of high-tech equipment. But wait until we dive into how classical reality just completely breaks down at the atomic level, and how the ancients actually saw that exact breakdown coming centuries before the very first microscope was even invented.
To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to look at some brilliant insights from Werner Heisenberg's foundational book, Physics and Philosophy. Now, Heisenberg wasn't just a historian. He was literally one of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics. And in this text, he connects his own groundbreaking science straight back to ancient Greece. He realized that the philosophical crises modern physicists were facing, well, they were the exact same crises those early Greek thinkers faced when they tried to figure out what the universe is actually made of.
Okay, let's jump into Section 1, the quantum reality shock.
So, for a long time, thanks to thinkers like Isaac Newton, we kind of just assumed the universe was basically a giant predictable clockwork machine. But then, the quantum revolution happened, and it completely flipped the script. We really need to remember why this matters to you, right now. Get this, the table you're sitting at, the device you're watching this on, it's not actually solid matter. What you think is solid right there in front of you is actually just a mathematical probability of energy. At the subatomic level, the whole idea of a solid thing existing in a specific spot, it just completely vanishes. Poof. Check out this massive gap on the timeline. We start way back around 500 BC with the pre-Socratic philosophers, making these huge conceptual leaps about the nature of reality. Then, we skip to the 17th century where Newton and Descartes established that really rigid mechanical view of the world. And honestly, it took until the 1920s, with the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, for science to finally catch up to the Greeks. We basically had to wait until classical mechanics completely failed us at the atomic level.
The final nail in the coffin for that old classical physics was Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. The crucial point here is that you simply cannot know both the exact position and the exact momentum of a quantum particle at the same time. And this isn't just a glitch in our measuring tools, it's a fundamental property of nature. The crazy part? The very act of observation literally creates the reality. That means particles aren't definite things until we actually measure them. Until then, they exist only as probabilities. Wild, right?
Moving on to Section 2, Heraclitus and how fire is energy. Okay, so if matter isn't a solid thing, what exactly is it? Let's travel back to ancient Ephesus and ask the philosopher Heraclitus. He argued that fire is the primary driving force of the universe and that absolutely everything is in a constant state of transformation. Well, guess what? Modern physics says essentially the exact same thing, just swapping terms to state that energy is the primary substance. Seriously, if you just swap that ancient word fire for energy, Heraclitus sounds exactly like a 20th century quantum physicist.
Let's look at how beautifully these concepts line up. Just like Heraclitus argued that everything is born from the conflict and transformation of fire, modern physics shows us that energy transforms into motion, heat, and light. It's the absolute fundamental cause of all change. Today, our massive particle accelerators actually prove that enormous kinetic energy physically creates the very elementary particles we observe out of nothing but energy itself. The conflict of energy literally gives birth to matter.
Up next, Section 3, Democritus versus modern atoms.
Let's see how all this builds on another ancient genius, Democritus, the guy who literally gave us the word atom, which means indivisible. He knew that to find the ultimate fundamental building block of the universe, you have to strip down reality step by step. Step 1. Democritus realized true atoms wouldn't have sensory traits, so he took away color, taste, and smell, leaving just geometric shapes moving in a void. Step 2. Modern physics takes it even further. We had to take away permanence and solid mass entirely, leaving nothing but abstract mathematical probability.
Now, here is where the ancient Greeks were slightly off, and it's a super fascinating distinction. Democritus believed his atoms were indestructible and eternal. Once a block of matter, always a block of matter. But thanks to the equivalence of mass and energy in modern physics, we now know elementary particles are not eternal, unbreakable building blocks. They're actually just transient manifestations of energy. They can be created in high-energy collisions and then completely destroyed, turning right back into energy.
And this brilliant shift really highlights our modern dilemma. A fundamental particle today doesn't even have the property of being in a specific place. It doesn't have an exact position, it doesn't have a specific trajectory, it's definitely not a solid little sphere. As Heisenberg himself noted, it's actually much closer to the old Aristotelian concept of potentia. It's just a tendency to exist, basically an abstract mathematical wave of probability vibrating in the quantum field.
All right, Section 4, Plato's Mathematical Universe.
So this brings up a massive question. If particles aren't physical, indestructible objects, what is actually holding the universe together at the fundamental level? I mean, if there's no stuff at the bottom of everything, what is there? This brings us to a mind-blowing realization that echoes the ancient mystics perfectly. The Pythagorean school famously declared, all things are numbers. They believed mathematics wasn't just some human tool to measure the universe, but that it was the literal foundation of reality itself.
Plato took this mathematical obsession to the next level in his dialogue, the Timaeus. He theorized that the elements weren't made of physical substance at all, but of purely mathematical, geometric shapes. Earth was a cube, fire was a tetrahedron. But here's the kicker. He argued these shapes could be broken down even further into underlying 2D triangles. He was essentially saying that if you look closely enough at matter, the physical substance completely dissolves into pure mathematics.
And this is exactly where we find ourselves today. When physicists smash particles and colliders, they don't get smaller physical pieces of a thing. They don't find a tiny hard core. Instead, they just get mathematical symmetries that describe energy fields. The fundamental laws of nature are just mathematical equations, and the particles, they're simply the solutions to those equations. Proving Plato was essentially right all along. The deeper you go, the physical world just vanishes, leaving only math.
Let's wrap it up with Section 5, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Science. So how do we tie this beautiful 2,500-year philosophical loop together in our explainer today? How do we reconcile the sheer genius of the ancients with the precision of modern physics? Well, it turns out that after spending billions of dollars on vast underground colliders and developing incredibly complex math, the deepest philosophical truths of quantum mechanics were already conceptualized by guys sitting in togas without a single microscope. They foresaw that science would have to shift away from physical things and move toward pure mathematical probability. They understood that reality is just a dynamic, ongoing transformation of energy. And perhaps most profoundly, they recognize that we aren't just spectators. The observer is an active participant in the universe.
As you look at the world around you today, just remember that everything you touch, see, and interact with is fundamentally just energy and math. The solid world is kind of an illusion built by your senses. And that leaves us with a truly fascinating question to ponder. If our absolute most cutting-edge science has led us right back to ancient philosophy, what ancient truth will we scientifically rediscover next? Think about that for a while. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and until next time, keep questioning the reality around you.